James Mennie, brought to you by Gilbert & Daughter. For a limited time, get an additional 40% off at the cash. Gilbert & Daughter, 49 Donegani in Point Claire.
What the city is talking about. This is Montreal Now on News Talk Radio, CJAD 800.
That is James Mennie over at the Montreal Gazette. And Jim, let me begin with this. I saw the headline this morning, and I wanted to talk about this with you. We've talked so much about Justin Trudeau. Will he, won't he? Should he stay? Should he go? We have a live microphone in his office right now, and this is what has been playing apparently on a loop for most of the day. Jimmy?
E ora veramente credo che non mi resti altro da dire.
Okay, that's the lengthy part of what I thought we had, but the part that I wanted you to hear was Andrea Bocelli singing "It's time to go."
Time to go. Well, it's not. As much as I'm a fan of Andrea Bocelli, I think when Catherine McKenna turns around and says, unbidden, just volunteers the information, it's time for Justin Trudeau to go. Catherine McKenna, who was let's face it, the point person, if you will, for this entire regime. She was the Minister of Environment. She was dismissed as Climate Barbie by Conservative supporters because she did her job relentlessly. She decided not to seek office again, and there was some concern over, when we start losing people like McKenna, where's the party going to go? We're seeing now former BC Premier Christy Clark is also calling for a return to. She wants the Liberal Party that I used to vote for to come back, and I think she's speaking for a lot of people out there. This is snowballing. I suggested this at the start of the week, Aaron. I said, after Frank Bayless, I said, wait for more people to start stepping forward, expressing an interest, either in looking for the job or telling Trudeau to get the hell out of it. This Angus Reid survey that came out today is absolutely, I find it even more devastating for Trudeau than the by-election loss. His popularity rating is minus 32 compared to plus 3 for Pierre Poilievre. And I couldn't believe those numbers when I saw them, but you know what? They make a kind of sense. But I have to tell you as well, there is something that I mentioned to you, and how can I set this up? I think this week I even told you, like, a lot of things that I took for granted in politics and the way things work were changing. Even though, we didn't really see it happening, it has changed. Certain fundamental truths that I believed in, and, if A and B happens, then C is going to be the outcome of that in politics. That's out the window. And I had thought that if Pierre Poilievre really begins to gather steam, the best thing that can happen to Justin Trudeau is that Donald Trump would win the presidency.
Right. Yeah.
A lot of Canadians would go, holy moly, I don't need that in stereo. You know what I'm saying? Well, here's Angus Reid turning around, and it's going through the list of things that Canadians think Poilievre is better at doing than Trudeau. The only thing Trudeau outscored Poilievre on was taking action on climate change and making childcare more affordable. Anything else you can absolutely think of, Aaron, okay, he got stopped by Poilievre. But what gets me is the category dealing with Donald Trump if he becomes president of the United States again. 30% thought Trudeau would do a good job. 44% thought Poilievre would do a good job. So, quite frankly, I think this says more about how utterly toxic Justin Trudeau has become. But all that said, I thought that would be the lifesaver we could throw Justin Trudeau if he decided to hang on. I just don't know how he can still hang around, Aaron. I don't know how he can actually look at anybody in the face. And he hasn't spoken to anyone, officially, reporters or so on, since this disastrous by-election. Is he perhaps gathering his thoughts, writing a speech, preparing for departure? You can only hope. If you're a Liberal supporter, you can only hope so, because we are seeing right now the sort of self-immolation of the Liberal Party, and the Tories haven't done a thing yet. The Tories haven't really sort of campaigned and focused on it yet. They are just blaming everything on Trudeau. And you can hop up and down and say, that's ridiculous, and people are smarter than that. Guess what? It's working. And it's working very, very well. And whether it'll work on somebody else remains to be seen, but certainly it's working on Justin Trudeau, who, quite frankly, is now nothing more than a fatal liability for the federal Liberal Party.
So, Jim, second try. Here we go. This is what's playing in the office right now, Jimmy.
Okay.
Thank you, Sarah. Sarah Brightman there, yeah.
You know,
the highbrow moment of the show, Jim.
Aaron, you and I are kind of messing around right now, but don't be surprised if he announces his departure that they actually play that during
Yeah,
the
there you
song.
go. Look,
Yeah.
I would ask you, with respect to Catherine McKenna, and let's be honest, this is the highest ranking and really, frankly, the only person who's spoken up, a former cabinet minister, by the way.
Yeah.
Does this kind of portend, piling on, kind of let's get on board with her kind of a scenario, do you think?
I think if anybody was thinking twice about going public, they've made up their mind, because I quite frankly was quite shocked. I knew there was something of a, how can I put it? I won't say a cloud, but there was a certain somberness surrounding her departure from politics. And at the time, a lot of people said she's just fed up because she was so complete. For the 100% of abuse that Justin Trudeau received as Prime Minister, she received 12,000% of abuse, and which is just typical in this country and how we treat female politicians. But honestly, for her to stand up and say it's time for someone to, you have your legacy, pass the torch, and also to suggest that we need someone who's going to be able to deal with climate change and deal with those challenges, the implicit in that suggestion being that he can't. Well, I think it's only a matter of time. I think there'll be a decent interval over the course of the Canada Day weekend. And straight up with you, the handicapper in me right now is kind of trying to scratching to get out. I wouldn't be surprised if something happened this weekend, if we got an announcement this weekend.
Wow. Okay.
I really, I just get the impression that when that by-election happened and the shockwaves of that finally made themselves felt from one of the party to the other, even his entourage, even his yes boss entourage can't help but ignore the writing on the wall, which is the size of the Hollywood sign in Hollywood, right? I mean, it's there. You've got to go, and you've got to give the party time to find a new and viable leader. But to keep playing this game, I'm going to be there for the next election, you are going to be toast in the next election. The question is, how many people do you want to take down with you?
Let me go from that to last night's presidential debate, which I'm sure you watch or listen to here on CJAD. I'm going to ask this as a question because I wanted to avoid it right off the top of the show, but we're going to come back to it. Just give me your take on what you saw and heard last night.
I saw an 81-year-old man suffering from a cold, taking bad advice and having a debate this early. And the only thing I could tell you, Aaron, is to do our audience a favor. If you're going to play any clips from last night, make sure you play the clips that we had on the news today showing how different Biden sounds today as he did yesterday. Although I'll bet you folding money, Donald Trump will sound the same every single time. When you're in a situation where you have a presidential debate and people are focusing on one candidate's age and his ability to speak and to express himself or how quickly he moves, and you have a convicted felon who is an adjudicated rapist, and who is facing all kinds of legal action, but who many people are convinced tried to overthrow the government. But he's the normal guy. There's just something very, very wrong with that picture. And all I will tell our listeners is, as far as I'm concerned, mainstream media in the U.S. is completely in the tank with Donald Trump, simply because he gets them clicks, he makes them money. The moderators last night, who seem to be sitting on their hands for the entirety of that debate, make a very, very good living. And they'll continue to make that living for a few years more under Donald Trump. Not entirely sure they'll be needed, at least at that price, if Joe Biden remains president.
I'm glad you brought up, because people will have watched this last night and obviously perhaps not seen everything going on today. And I mentioned this off the top of the show, but to your point, today Joe Biden, just earlier this afternoon, was at a campaign rally in North Carolina. he was 180 degrees from where he was or sounded last night. I mean, that's not even, it's almost unbelievable to consider that's the same person today.
We played the clip in news. It's out there, Aaron. I beseech you, please, let the listeners hear it and let them decide in less than 24 hours to hear between the Biden, who was seemed to be floundering last night. And you know what? I got to tell you, insofar, and you know, after all these years, I have studiously avoided talking about American politics because, as far as I'm concerned, it's just a train wreck. Okay, but here's the thing: if you look at what's happening right now in the past 24 hours, I learned a whole hell of a lot more about the state of the Democratic Party than I did about Joe Biden, and how scared and listless and rudderless the Democratic Party has become, and divided. The idea that, we got to get rid of him, throw him in the dumpster, get him out of here. You know what? I'm glad he set everyone's mind, or he set the record straight today. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to do it. If I didn't think I could do this job, I wouldn't do it. And let's face it, he doesn't have to be doing this. That's the one thing you know about Joe Biden. His age, he doesn't. He's not doing this for the money or the power. I really get the impression he saw there was a threat to the very essence of the United States of America in the form of Donald Trump, and he's trying to fight that, and we'll see how far it goes. But I got to tell you, if he fails, it won't be because of a failing on his part. It'll be on a failing, certainly on the part that's supposed to be backing him, and even more largely on I think, as far as I'm concerned, an American electorate which deep down inside is far more concerned about getting a tax cut than they are about any single other issue.
You know, Jim, my concern, I guess, based on what I saw last night, was I saw him this afternoon at the campaign rally, and yes, as I said, he was a completely different person in the best possible way. But I wonder, can you even get over something like what happened last night? If you consider the undecided in America, and there's a fairly large group apparently that have not made up their minds, and you watched just that last night and decided at that point, I'm going to turn off everything now, I don't need to see anything more. Joe Biden can't win this election, can he?
If they keep playing the same clip all over, over and over again, I mean, I wish it was very, very complex, Aaron. I hate to say it in this day and age, it's like lab rats. You keep playing clip A will become gospel. Keep playing clip B becomes gospel. The question is, how much airtime do each of those clips get? That's the real question here. I think people want to believe. They want to believe in someone who's strong, someone who's powerful. If he brought 10% of that energy that we just heard on the news to that debate last night, you and I would be having this conversation. But he didn't. But guess what? We're on the cusp of July, and the election is in November. There's a whole lot of river to cross before we get to the shore.
James Mennie at the Montreal Gazette. Thank you, Jim. Have a good weekend.
You too, buddy.